people watch a sci-fi movie today. They want to escape into another world, basically a concept of what the future might look like. That's exactly what you see in a movie like The Giver or in a show like Altered Carbon, where also the visuals are simply brilliant. The same cannot be said about this movie with the very primitive title, The Lobster. That name was just chosen because it's the name of the animal our lead character had chosen if he had to be turned into an animal. There are very many things to be annoyed about in this movie, but the first thing to point the finger on are the annoying use of voiceover. So absolutely get at it's a form of character building as the very important character played by Rachel Weisz is to introduce the person later in the movie. At the same time, it is very unnecessary, if not extremely tiring, to hear the narrator say the same thing that the lead actor will later say a couple of minutes later. That just creates moments where the movie feels very dragged, because then you also know what's going to happen already before the event goes down, making it less exciting and predictable in the process. So this is a movie that could never surprise you in the same way as if you didn't have the narrator telling the story. She also tells the story in a very trivial way. I see that it's supposed to be a love story, but it's just a bit too much in my opinion. If you ever seen the movie Casino, you would know what I'm talking about. In that movie, they do the voiceover even more. But there are many moments in this movie where it wouldn't have been necessary. The execution of the concept is also one huge factor as to why this is the worst sci-fi movie ever. In an episode of Black Mirror, they had an episode which looked like the concept in this movie. It was the episode where you had to date different people in order to find one. What differs in that story from this one was that the intensity was scaled up a lot more, and what happened in the story was also a lot more explained, because here you see a concept of loners being sent to a hotel in order to find someone new to love after getting divorced by their previous partners. All in all, a decent concept, but they don't really tell us why they are doing this or how they are turning people into animals. That is originally what the story is supposed to be about, but you don't see how the people are turned into animals. For me, that would be more interesting to watch than to just cook up a love story to shift the focus away from the concept. Because in the beginning you see a concept that might form into something when they are all locked up in the hotel and they are forced to play by a set of rules and get punishments when they don't follow them. For example, they can't masturbate. What follows and makes it even worse is that further into the movie, you just see the loners versus the people staying in the hotel, and suddenly it is just about them more than the actual concept. Of course, also the love story between Weisz and Farrell develops more and more, and you feel it goes from being a sci-fi and into a romance movie, which is of course a development you saw coming all along. But the story lacks something more to give it that edge of a little more intensity, because it also seems all too easy the way the two main lovebirds manages to escape the obstacles. So the girl goes blind, and that's of course a challenge in itself, but you would have expected the hotel staff to be a little more tough and maybe have been able to try to chase them down, or at least look for them. Of course, it could be that this movie is a little more advanced than what I'm used to. But I really struggle with this one. What I also absolutely would say is that it doesn't really look like the future. The hotel staff look very outdated, and their uniforms look like something from 1918. The visuals just doesn't make this movie feel very modern, and it seems like you are back in time more than you are in the future. You know this is supposed to be the future, and then it just looks ridiculous. I don't really think either that everybody would wear a suit in such an environment, but at the same time nobody is supposed to stand out. So maybe it is accurate after all. For me, nonetheless, the only positive light in the movie was the performance by Colin Farrell. He is a man that I always enjoy on set. Although it might not be its best performance, he outshines all the other actors. At the same time, that made me feel that it was just only one good actor here, and the others just seemed hollow and flat. That might also be due to the boring way the story was written, however. So anyways, guys, that is also another reason why I feel this is the worst sci-fi movie ever made.